My phone.
Hello, lovelies. Thank you for coming for another week. And today we have a really interesting event. Uh, after years of losing my health to MS, one habit shifted my body to decline, or from decline to restoration, in only 6 weeks. And regardless of what you're going through, this could be your first step in a healthier future. So, in this video, we're going to show you a habit that can restore your body from the inside out. We'll show you how this habit not only restores you, but also protects your future health, and how you can start right now, regardless of your age, your health, or your condition. But before I show you what it is, you need to think about your body as an energy source. And it's kind of like a solar powered lamp. So, if we think about a solar powered lamp like this one, it the sun charges it up, and at nighttime it gets nice and dark and bright, and then it stays lit all night. But as it stays lit, that energy source is being drawn out. So there's only so much available energy before our solar light goes out. And this will restart in the morning. So it'll get light again, it'll charge up, and it'll deplete overnight and then start that cycle over again. But have you ever tried to charge a solar light with a flashlight? You can't do it. It's just not strong enough. It doesn't have enough energy to make it charge. And this is why the solar is charged by sunlight. It's full spectrum, it's way brighter, way stronger. Plus, there's certain lights that you can see and can't see, and that's the infrared and the infrared light that these photons are being picked up on this solar lamp. So, what is this habit? If you think about your body and you don't put that solar lamp back into the sunlight, it won't charge back up. And this is just like your body. So, what's the habit? Um, so, we want to think about adding sunlight to your body, but adding sunlight isn't enough. You need to prepare the body before it gets restored. And before we restore it, getting in that sunlight, it's waking up in the morning, getting out in the sun. And if you never get outside, in our world now, you wake up, you jump on your cell phone, you start playing around, and you rarely get into sunlight. And then at nighttime, we have our artificial light about us, and the artificial light is just like the flashlight trying to charge up our solar battery. So we think, that sunlight isn't enough. We need something more than our artificial light. We need that strong sunlight. But as I said, you need to prepare the body before it can be restored. And again, think about our solar lamp. At the very top is this little lens. And that little lens picks up. But I don't know if you can tell right now, but that lens it's a little bit dirty. So how can the sun actually charge this up efficiently if the lens is dirty? We want to clean it. And I could simply run my hand over it, and now it's a little bit cleaner, so it can get a little bit more sunlight. It's not perfect, but it's still going to get more sunlight. So now this is ready to go out into the sun. So before we actually put our bodies into the sun, we want to charge it. We want to clean that lens so that it can be charged fully and efficiently. And this is what happens when we sleep. And this is what we call autophagy. But more specifically, I'm talking about mitophagy. And there's a difference. So, mitochondria, every cell in your body, except your red blood cells, 99% of your body is a cell, and it has not just one mitochondria, but thousands of them. And the mitochondria is known to be an energy source. But more, what it really is a battery. It uses the sun to get charged up. It uses sleep then to recycle the dysfunctional mitochondria and any damaged mitochondria. So you need a good rest. and that means producing melatonin. And when we think about melatonin, melatonin is what helps you sleep. It's that rest piece. You have cortisol in the morning, and the cortisol wakes you up. It kind of helps with pain, and the melatonin quiets you down. But we often think that it's the pineal gland. Well, the pineal gland, which is in the middle of your head, and I have some meditations on this, that only accounts for about 5% of your melatonin to help you sleep. 95% of it occurs, is created, and that's within your body. It's within the mitochondria. And that's where it's done. And that kind of gets your body healing. So now that we've cleaned our solar light through rest and we're getting into the light by going outside, this doesn't mean that we're protecting our future health. So when we think about we've cleaned our light, our solar light through rest, and we're getting it into the light by going outside, this doesn't mean that we're protecting our health. So think of it like exercising or eating right. If you go off your diet or skip the gym too many times, we end up getting a little bit slower. We get fatter, we get put on weight, we don't feel as good. But compared to the times that we're on a diet and we're eating well, we're healthy, we're feeling good about the food, we feel energized, we're going to the gym, we can actually see changes that our body's getting stronger. Well, the same thing happens for your mitochondria. And if you don't take care of it, it gets out of shape. And the mitochondria can become misshapen and dysfunctional. But why is that important? Well, research now links mitochondria dysfunction to all conditions, or almost all of them, from Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, to heart disease, cancer, multiple sclerosis. It happens in everything. And the good news is the mitochondria only lives for 7 to 10 days. So your body is already replacing them constantly. And no matter if you're getting really good sleep and you're really cleaning up your mitochondria, you're getting rid of all that dysfunction, and you're getting a half sleep, you're still recycling. And within 2 to 3 weeks of consistent conditioning, most of your mitochondria are brand new. So what happens in those 6 weeks? Imagine in 6 weeks, you go through 2 full cycles of transforming your health. And that's what happened to me. So when I was in bed, stuck in bed in January, within 6 weeks, I was beginning to stand and walk again from doing this exact cycle. And now it's been about 6 months for me. I'm getting better every day. The last 10 years, my body got worse every 6 months. No matter all the higher consciousness I was doing, the mindfulness, but all that was preparation to give me the information and the knowledge to get to here. So 6 months later, I'm doing great. And this is where I want all of you to go too. So how do we start reversing your disease to a habit of health? Well, let's look at when the sun comes up. You start your day with the sun. That sparks melatonin production for the night. The earlier you get up, if you get up with the sunrise, when all the rays are out there, and you start getting sun in your body, and you start your day with sunlight rather than your cell phone, rather than anything artificial, it's going to change and create some chemical processes in your body that will charge up that melatonin within the mitochondria. It'll start firing up. It's just like getting sunlight on this solar light. It's preparing it for the nighttime. And then you go out through all the day. So pick some different times. Go out in the morning, go out in the afternoon, go out at nighttime when the sun is setting. It starts all over again. We got a nice rhythm there of sunlight coming on, coming off. At nighttime, when the sun is gone, put on things like blue blockers. And these are my sets of blue blockers. And they just connect onto my glasses. And this is enough to block that blue light. Blue light is when the sun is at its peak. It's not confusing my mitochondria that the blue light is not there. So it blocks it. So now my body can actually prepare for sleep and get ready and start bringing up all that melatonin that produced during the daytime and start seeing. We've seen a solar light that when it starts to get a little bit darker, the solar light starts to get kind of dim and then it gets brighter as less light shows up. This is what happens with our mitochondria, just like the solar lamp. As the sunlight, natural sunlight goes, we got to be mindful of the artificial stuff. So you put on the blue blockers. The last part is that melatonin is going to start sparking your body to get a little bit sleepy. Consistently now that I've done this a bunch of times, I was pretty strict at the beginning. I'm no longer as strict. I can let go of things, but my body's already tired. I'm starting to yawn by 9 o'clock. This is what happens when you wear the blue blockers and you allow the solar light to start emitting its light and you allow that natural light to disappear as it's intended instead of turning on artificial light. So now we can start getting to bed, get into autophagy. The pineal gland can start producing the melatonin. The one thing with the pineal gland, though, it needs total darkness, which is why I typically wear a sleep mask that covers my eyes completely. So I block out all artificial light. Even the little red light or the green light that might be on your smoke detector or fire alarm, even that gets blocked. And by having a sleep mask, that completely gets blocked out. So if you keep doing this for 6 weeks, you're going to create a habit of health. But if the sun and sleep are cycling the energy, what about your fuel source? And without proper fuel, you'll run out of energy. And I'm not talking about food. So join us next week where we're going to talk in our next video and we'll see how to complete and create an unstoppable cycle of restoring your health and your mitochondria so that your health today is getting better and your future health is protected at all times. I hope that helps. Thank you all for being here. I'm not saying goodbye. I just wanted to share that and get that out and allow everyone in. Hi, everybody. I'm glad you're here. Hello. I'd ask if anyone has any questions, but I just want to turn to Rita. In the summertime, you're out in the sun all the time. Like you are a sun baby. And I was in the dark, but now I'm a sun baby and all freckled and peeling and whatever else. So what does the sun do for you?
For me, I don't know. I always greet the sun. I love to see the sun when it's out. I always say hello to it when it's there. I just love being out in the sun or being not even, I don't even have to be outside, but just being able to see the sun, I think makes a huge difference in my energy and also, I guess it definitely affects my energy and what I feel like doing for the day. And I think, when I think of like fall or when there's like less sunlight, I do know my body does feel a little different in terms of, just having that lack of sunlight, not necessarily having that depressive seasonal affectiveness disorder, but just the little difference in the amount of sun I'm getting, like I notice like a big difference in my energy level. So I get fueled by the sun. Because
we know, the sun, there's different stages. So when the sun first rises, you get the reds, the oranges, the yellows. It starts going through all the colors of the rainbows, going through the green, the blues, everything it goes through. And then it ends up being that bright blue light, which starts creating these chemical changes in the body. Well, once the sun is high above you, we've been taught to avoid it and even wear sunglasses because we're all afraid of being burnt. And that was me for years. When I used to work on a motorcycle course, I would lather myself with a thick layer of suntan lotion that would hardly get through. But I was actually really doing a disservice for myself. When you use the morning light, that light when the shadows are really long, that's called UVA light. You can't burn. You can get a slight tan from it, but not much. You can't burn. That actually prepares your body for that afternoon sun. In the afternoon, get out in that sun at least 20 minutes. But what do? We put on sunglasses. So now you've got shade in your eyes. Well, if the eyes are it's the receptor, it's the receiving end. If your eyes are now out there and you're wearing glasses, sunglasses that are blocking all that UV, our windows are already doing that. The window blocks some UVA and most UVB. Now you get outside, you put the sunglasses on, you don't get any UVA or UVB. So now your body has no idea how to protect itself from the sun. So for me, as a pasty white guy that burns his entire life, that's had second degree sunburns more than once, I was always afraid of the sun. But we started to create a solar callus. And at the start, when I was in that bed, she would get me into the wheelchair and then wheel me out in the sun for 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15, 20, built it up. And now on the hottest days, we hear people in our apartment building and they say, "Oh my God, it's so hot outside. It's sweltering." We go out there, it's like, "Oh my God, it's beautiful. This is such good weather." And I'll be out on the hottest days. I've been out for like 2 hours. No problem. Now it is a little draining as well, but now 2 hours in the sun, I don't burn. And even though my glasses aren't on, a lot of times sometimes they are because I need it to see sometimes because where we are, the roads are pretty old and they're pretty bumpy. So I use that sun, but that sun is also creating vitamin D. It's converting. So if you have high cholesterol, get outside in the sun because that is creating natural vitamin D in your system and converting the cholesterol. Your high cholesterol gets converted into vitamin D. And you know what the greatest deficiency in MS is and a lot of these neurological diseases? Lack of sun, lack of vitamin D specifically. The further away from the equator you are, the more cases of MS there are. So this can happen naturally. But I know we can get that in our foods. You can also get that in supplements because Rita, you had me on supplements and certain foods for some time. So what are the foods? What are the supplements? And how did that compare to, like, let's say, natural, getting it from sunlight, let's say?
Yeah, food wise, it's difficult to get vitamin D through food. There are certain food. There's maybe like 2 or 3 foods that I would say are a significant source of vitamin D. So like cod liver oil, I think is like at the top of the list. But fatty fish is another way to get some vitamin D. And pretty much the third one is like either wild mushrooms or mushrooms that have UV light shined on them. Is that the right way of saying that? So mushrooms with UV light, so that they absorb that light and then they absorb the vitamin D or convert to vitamin D, I should say. So those are like really the only main sources of food.
Can you actually do that? So, and I've read that in some of the papers that you put food out in the sun and it absorbs the UV, like you said, and you get the vitamin D from it. Now, I think like mushrooms are very spongy, very squishy, and it probably absorbs it really well. Can you do that with other foods? Like, do you know if that's a thing?
So from what I read, the conversion in like plants, especially like, let's say I grow microgreens outside sometimes because they love the sun and they grow super fast. But in plants, they don't really have that conversion factor in them other than the mushroom. So it wouldn't be a source. So even if it did convert some of that UV light, it's not a significant amount of source to make a difference in that sense. So yeah, so if you for some reason you can't get out in the sun and you really want to get some semblance of vitamin D into your system, you could definitely start with the cod liver oil, eat more fatty fish, and then definitely either find some wild mushrooms or I don't know if all mushrooms have UV light put on them, and I don't know if it's labeled that way, but the food wise, that's where I would go.
So for you taught and you do teach how to grow microgreens. And predominantly, when we were in the house, you were growing it from the basement using LED full spectrum LED lamps in order to create it. And they grew pretty fast. Now that you're doing it outside and on the balcony, do you notice
Oh yeah.
any difference between it? Like what's the
So
biggest difference?
they grow so fast, and that, yeah. So when we had the house and I had my space, I don't think they were LED lights, but they were definitely full spectrum lights. And it would take about, from start to finish, about 10 days to grow a tray of microgreens. And so when I came here, I thought, oh, I'm just gonna make smaller, smaller trays of microgreens, because we don't really have the space for it. So I started out with a small tray and I had it inside, but then our balcony is like, east facing, so we get like the beautiful morning sunlight. And I thought, you know what, I'm gonna put it outside and just see if it likes it or if it grows. And you can definitely, just like all plants, right? Like they kind of gravitate toward the sun. So I'd wake up in the morning and they'd all be like leaning towards the sun, and then they'd kind of like balance out throughout the day. But so in my mind, it takes 10 days. So from start to finish. So I waited the full 10 days. And by the time it got to the 10 days, at this point, it was past its, no, what's the word I'm looking for? Like it wasn't really as edible, meaning like it became too stringy and just not, not pleasant to eat. So I definitely know that you don't require 10 days from start to finish when I'm just using the outside sun. And honestly, we only get morning sun. So the rest of the day is shade. So there's no lamps over top, and still it was amazing to see the difference growing from inside versus outside.
So if we can see the sun is doing that with plants, and we are gravitating more towards following nature, imagine what that sun is doing for our bodies, coming into our skin receptors, coming in through our eyes, and what it's doing for our mitochondria. And that alone, I think, like I said, that was the greatest change. Because for a year, I followed this getting into the sunlight method, except my body couldn't get outside. I would stand by a window. And even though the window was open, it still wasn't enough. It wasn't until I actually got into the sun, and within 6 weeks, that it was such a dramatic change after a year of decline, even though I was doing all the right things. So this is why we're moving everybody to the sun, and think of yourself like a solar lamp to get that charged up. So I think about the vitamin D that we're getting there. So when we already talked about vitamin D, what is the source? If the sunlight, because I know sunlight is creating 25 different metabolites, which is fat soluble and water soluble, what is the supplements? Because I know there's D3 supplements that get prescribed as well. What is it?
Yeah, so supplement wise, I mean, most people probably already taking D3 supplements. And D3, the supplements that we're buying in the store, I would say most of them are created through sheep's wool. So they take sheep's wool, which absorbs the sun. They take it and then they extract the oil from it. They expose that to UV, and then that turns that into our vitamin D supplements. So that's how we're getting vitamin D through supplementation. And for some people that are like true vegans that don't want anything to do with animal products, even though the animals obviously not being harmed when we're taking their wool, I'm assuming. But if someone is a true vegan, let's say, you can still get vitamin D through supplementation. In the health food stores, they would just call it, vegan D3. And that's made from lichen, which is like an algae type thing. So same idea. So you still, doesn't matter if you're a vegan or not, you can still get D3 through supplementation. And going back to what Khan was saying, and he was on D3 the whole time, like for years. So it's not like we were lacking the supplement D3, right? It was the I think the sun itself provided something that a supplement can't necessarily accomplish, right? So the D3 that we're getting through supplementation, it's still doing things in our body, right? D3 has many purposes. So, strong bones, helping with metabolism of calcium, like, so it has like these great functions so vitamin D is still very important, but the sunlight was sort of like that missing piece in his protocol, because we were doing everything. There's nothing that we weren't doing.
Yeah.
And so that made a big difference, actually adding the sun, not just relying on supplements.
That was the game changer.
Yeah.
Was the sun. And like I said, it all goes back to mitochondrial dysfunction. And even though, so because I'm documenting this, because going through higher consciousness, I always knew that I was going to heal. So over these 10 years plus years of diagnosing, figuring things out, as I was developing my higher consciousness, I always knew that I would heal and reverse MS. But they always said it's incurable, it's irreversible. So one of the markers, when I found out that vitamin D is one of the clear markers of somebody with MS, and the reason why it's further away from the equator is because the sun doesn't get high enough in the wintertime. So we're in Toronto, and Toronto is roughly in line. It dips down to the States. It's roughly in line with Northern California, Northern Italy, and along those lines. It's roughly along that trajectory. So if you're above, like LA and up, you're not necessarily going to get the sun high enough in the wintertime. This is why we go south enough. And that's why we had to go to Florida over the winter, because we don't get vitamin D during the winter. So during the summer, this is where we want to build up your sources. What I was getting at is when you go to the doctors do test for vitamin D. And my vitamin D was through the roof, but I still had all these conditions with MS. And that's because of what Rita just said about this one type of vitamin D that they test for isn't all types. Even in breastfeeding mothers, they always thought mothers cannot produce vitamin D through their breast milk, but they never tested water-soluble vitamin D. So out of those 25 different metabolites created by the natural sun, one is the one that's being prescribed by supplementation. The rest is all the nature's way of converting of that vitamin D, which is really sparking up the mitochondria, reversing mitochondrial dysfunction. Like I said, this is brain diseases too. It's Alzheimer's, it's Parkinson's, it is cancers, it's everything from the spectrum. And this is what we start from a baby, even into our senior age. And that's what happens through mitochondrial dysfunction. As we get older, we start getting old, we start looking older because our battery, our solar light is getting dimmer and dimmer and dimmer, and we're not charging it up properly. And this is the habit and the secret. Within 6 weeks or 3 weeks, you recycle it and create new mitochondria. You do it again and again. Like I said, I've been doing it for 6 months now. And my body, I feel it getting better. I don't have to be as strict. If I need to sleep in a little bit more, like today, I had a horrible sleep last night, but I was able to still get up and start my routine like an hour later. You don't have to be perfect. In the beginning, yes, but after a while, once your circadian rhythms reset, once you fall in line with Chinese protocols in terms of getting the sleep, getting the detoxing, you don't need to be as strict. So something to consider. And the one thing is, it kind of comes to mind is, we talk about vitamin D for us. Well, how about our pets, our dogs, cats? How do they get their vitamin D? Don't they need it?
Yeah. So cats and dogs, from what I understand, can't make vitamin D. So the only way they get it is through food. Unfortunately, most food, especially like kibble, is just like fortified. So it's like they're just adding the vitamin into their food. But more natural ways for them to get vitamin D naturally would be through like things like liver and fats. So liver treats are great, or if you're raw feeding your cat and dog, definitely add some organ meat in there, and that's one way they get the vitamin D. Other animals, I believe they can somehow convert it. I know even livestock can convert it. Something to do with their fur, the oil in their fur. But yeah, I know cats and dogs don't for sure.
Well, that's interesting then. If cats and dogs are getting their vitamins through food, how come in the last decade or so, more cats and dogs are getting cancers? They're more getting human diseases. And is that because we leave them indoors all the time? We're not outside enough with them, or they're not getting the proper food? Like, why are they starting to get human diseases? Do you have any inkling there?
I think it's like such a loaded question because part of it is, I think, food, right? So the food, a lot of it is not great unless you're raw feeding or cooking for your pets. I also think they take on our energies, right? So they're trying to protect us, or yeah, just trying to protect us, I guess. And so they're taking on some of our energies, and I yeah, are they getting out a lot? I'm thinking about this. These two dogs that I walk in this apartment building. So there's a gentleman in the building that is having some issues with walking, and so he was looking for someone just to take his dogs out, a couple times a day. So of course I volunteered. So here I am, first thing in the morning, which is not a problem for me, going out in the sun with these dogs, but it's hilarious how fast they just want to come back in. Like, so I'll purposely take them around once, and then it's like, okay, let's do it again. And they just keep pulling me towards the door. So it's like, I'm sure they just want to get back to their owner and stuff like that. So yeah, maybe part of it is we don't think about our dogs needing the sun. But again, they can't really get it through sun, but again, through food. So I would still go back to the food, like make sure you're feeding your dogs some good food, or at least adding things to their food.
Like what?
Like I was saying, like the liver, there's liver treats, there's actual liver, like organ meats that you can buy for your pets. A lot of kibble is just, it's processed, it's over processed. That's the problem, right? So it becomes deficient, even though they're piling vitamins and minerals back in. Everything's synthetic. It's synthetic this and synthetic that, and like just,
So I might even say that they might not know that dogs and cats aren't getting something from the sun. I would assume that we just don't know any better. We haven't done the testing yet.
Yeah.
It hasn't gotten to that point that I'm sure there's some sort of benefits. Because, I look at a lot of homeless people and with their homeless pets, they look pretty healthy out there. Besides, maybe drug and alcohol abuse, but some of the other homeless people that we come across and help and whatnot, some of them are pretty healthy and they just need a little bit of help. So anyways, I thought I'd say that. Babette says, I allow my cats to go on my balcony. I hope they get enough. Yeah. And, the fact that you're doing that, I think it's great. Instinctually, it's that mother's instinct. It's that instinct that, I'm like, yesterday when we were walking these dogs, Rita grabs them, brings them in the elevator, and like after, what's that red mark? What's that red mark? And what are you talking about? Like, what red mark? Because what do you mean? It's plain as day. It's clearly right there. So that she's able to see things that I can't. And of course, after a while, she points to it, and she's just like, it's right here on this dog's neck. So, and Rita's always that way when we're walking. She's like, oh my God, there's a bug. There's this, there's that. Like she sees like the smallest minute thing because her instinct is drawn there. So Babette, I love that you are putting your cats on the balcony. It's great. Why not? Why not? It's great. I love it. We invite any other questions if you guys have or comments on this. Yeah, Babette also says The same for me, Rita. The sun recharges me. We know it naturally. And you'll notice from Babette's profile picture, her pigmentation is much darker than Rita and ourselves. So mine's the lightest out of the three of us. So because I have because I have I'm pretty low on the scale. Oh, what's the name? Do you remember the name of, not the Fairlight scale, or anyway, there's a certain name for the scale of pigmentation that people have. Because I'm lighter skin, I don't need as much light in the UVB to get the vitamin D. But some with darker complexions need more UVB exposure in order to get the vitamin D that they need. It's also probably why some people burn more than don't. But me, even being on the Fitzpatrick scale, that's it. So I'm the lowest on the Fitzpatrick scale. I've now conditioned myself to be out there for hours, whereas people with much darker skin tone than myself can't even be out there as long as I can. So it's all about conditioning. I'll share that. Yeah, and we are. Thanks, Babette. You're sharing lots today. It's great. We are connected. Said birthed from the sun. It is, what happens after our body, after our souls leave this body, goes back to the earth, and it is everything is grown from the earth. I would have to agree with that, and I would even include my pillars are sun, the earth, water, and air. All four of those elements, and then our higher consciousness. Coupled between all five of those, so the things that come from the earth, the things that are in the air, I'm using all of those, and that is making a massive difference, not only for the mitochondria, but for the body overall. We got Pamela Sue says, if we consider the sun as a sentient being and love, appreciate and thank it, you'll be able to be in its presence. Yeah, absolutely. Like, every morning I wake up, first thing I do is I open up the balcony door, and there's the sun. I take my glasses off. I say, good morning, sun. Good morning, God. I talk to all my guides and angels. I connect with them. I go into gratitude, and I'm just in love for the first few minutes. And then I prepare my water, and I do all my exercises and get all that done. I do all of that in the sun, which we're going to talk more about in the future. But the days that I can't get into the sun, I also still wake up and I thank it. I connect it. I talk to it. I go into the sun. And I've done a lot of meditations where I was guided to go into the sun and connect. You're a sun baby, Rita. You're always out there lounging, sleeping in the sun. I think that's a criteria that you need to have a spot where you can sleep in the sun.
It's not even sleeping in the sun. It's just being outdoors, being outside. It's outside, and and plants. When we first moved to the apartment, even though all our stuff had been moved into our apartment, so it's like our stuff, and it still didn't feel like home. And then as soon as I started bringing the plants in, that was like, okay, now I'm home. So it wasn't even the stuff that I that I have a connection to. It's just having my plants around and plants in general. But
so you actually bring up a great point when we talk about the sun. There is a point where you can be out in the sun for too long and get burned. So once you see your skin becoming slightly pink, that's called an erythema response. Essentially, the blood has come up to the skin to absorb the sunlight. It's like having this clean little solar light be able to grab the sun. So your blood does that as too, and it gets recharged, and that charges up your mitochondria. But when you start getting that picky in the skin, get into the shade. But not only that, if you're surrounded by greenery, because that ultraviolet light reflects off the green, and it's a healthy healing light to get on your skin, on your body. So get yourself covered when you have too much sun, and then get into the shade. But surround yourself with green. And there's a spectrum light that they use, and they show the green plants reflect the light of the sun perfectly. So it's very healing that we can do that. Yeah. Any other comments you want to add on that, hon?
No, I was thinking about going back to the question about the vitamin D maybe even blood work, because some people will get their blood work, regular blood work done, and vitamin D is one of those things that you can test for. And I just want people to be aware that even though there are ranges, right? So the Canadian and the American measurement system is a little bit different. But at the end of the day, there are ranges, right? So in Canada, our ranges, I wrote it down, 75 to 125. That would be like a normal. And then in the US, it's 30 to 50. It's just different measurements. But that's the medical world. So the medical world will, in Canada, if the max is 125 and you're at 130, they're going to say, oh, too much vitamin D, toxic, all this stuff to scare you. But then if you look in the functional medicine world, we start our value at 125, and we actually want people to be closer to 200. So that's Canadian values. In the States, that would be 50 to 80. So anyway, I just wanted to just say that, because it's like, if you are getting your vitamin D levels tested and you do have any health condition going on and your vitamin D levels are low, then, at least that gives you somewhere to start, knowing that if your vitamin D levels are low, because some of it could be, when the sun doesn't just come into our skin and then automatically convert to vitamin D, right? It has to go through all these like processes and it has to go to the liver, and then it goes to the liver and it becomes this kind of vitamin D. And then from there it goes to the kidney and it becomes another kind of vitamin D. Mm. So it is a process. So if the body is struggling in other ways because of deficiencies or just, maybe poor diet, whatever it may be, even though you're taking vitamin D, it might not be absorbing because there's other things that need to be corrected. But just if you are getting your blood work, next time you go get your blood work, just out of curiosity, get your vitamin D tested, and then I would follow more the functional medicine ranges as opposed to the Western medical doctor ranges.
That's good. Mm-hmm. I'll finish up here, but Daniela says, I integrated your saltwater practice in my daily sun meditation, and light codes I'm getting from the sun are very colorful. Excellent. That's amazing.
That's awesome.
I'm loving that. I'm so happy that you're putting that into practice. So again, we think about, it all comes down to mitochondrial dysfunction. It's connected to almost every disease out there, from mental diseases to physical diseases to cancers. And there's a question about frequency in here too. Why, if we're talking about frequency, why doesn't the heart get cancer? So there's something really important about mindset, or energy, and the energy and the frequency they're getting from the sun, and everything associated with this. We are just touching the surface on here. But ultimately, what you can do right now is, when you wake up tomorrow, get out in the sunlight. Spend a little bit of time in the sun. Spend it a few times during the day. At nighttime, get your blue blockers on. Get yourself to sleep. Allow your cycle to happen. In 6 weeks, at least 3 weeks, you're going to have new mitochondria. You're going to get rid of all dysfunctional ones, create new ones within 3 weeks or 7 to 10 days, and you cycle that 3 times. That's within 3. You do that, cycle it again 3 times. That's 6 weeks. You're going to have massive changes in your body. But as I said, the sun and sleep are the cycle of energy and rebuilding the mitochondria. But there is something about a fuel source. And without proper fuel, you'll run out of energy, and you won't necessarily be able to sustain or keep the mitochondria in this healthy, protective state. So, and again, I'm not talking about food, although it is a component. So again, please join us next week and watch our next video, and to see how we can complete an unbeatable cycle of restoring your mitochondria, restoring your health, and reversing disease once and for all. I want to thank you all for being here, and join us next week to do this all over again. Love you all. Bye.